The Tyra Dominion's fleet tore through the void like a storm, its warships gliding into Earth's orbit with practiced precision. Over 1,000 vessels, each bristling with weapons, formed a blockade around the blue planet. Their flagship, Imperator's Fist, a behemoth spanning miles in length, loomed over Earth like a god casting its judgment. From the command deck, High Commander Vorik stood with arms crossed, his crimson eyes scanning the planet below. To him, it was a world of no consequence, a minor, unremarkable rock with a species too primitive to be worth studying. The Dominion had crushed civilizations far greater than this one. Earth had no energy shields, no planetary cannons, no fleets to oppose them. It was, by all accounts, defenseless. A Xyra officer, clad in black armor, stepped forward. "High Commander, the planet has not responded to our demands." Vorik exhaled sharply. Typical. These primitives think silence is defiance. He turned to the holoscreen and activated the planetary broadcast. His voice, deep and filled with authority, echoed across every communication network on Earth. "People of Earth, I am High Commander Vorik of the Tyra Dominion. Your world is now under our rule. You will surrender immediately and submit to our authority. Any attempt at resistance will be met with complete annihilation." He paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle. He expected desperate pleas, perhaps a futile declaration of defiance. Instead, the silence continued. His expression darkened, no response. The officer checked the channels again. "None, High Commander. The transmission was received, but they are not responding." Vork's grip tightened around the railing. He had seen many species break under the mere sight of a Dominion fleet. Some begged for mercy, others fought, and were swiftly crushed. But never had a species ignored them outright. "Perhaps they do not understand the nature of their situation," he mused. He turned to his fleet commanders. "Prepare the landing forces. We will make them understand." The invasion was set in motion. Massive troop carriers deployed, dropping towards the planet's surface in a coordinated assault. Xyra warships adjusted their positions, ready to strike at any sign of organized resistance. The fleet's weapons hummed with power, capable of reducing cities to rubble in seconds. And yet, something felt wrong. Vorik glanced at the planet again, his instincts gnawing at him. There were no distress signals, no evacuation broadcasts, no desperate attempts to negotiate. Every species reacted when faced with annihilation. But Earth was waiting. For what, he did not know. But he would soon find out. The Tyra troop carriers descended toward Earth in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the planet's sun. Inside, the elite Dominion soldiers prepared for what they expected to be a routine pacification. They had conquered countless worlds, planets with advanced fortifications, towering citadels, and hardened warriors who still fell before the might of the Dominion. Compared to those, Earth was nothing. High Commander Vorik observed from the bridge of Imperator's Fist, watching as wave after wave of dropships penetrated the atmosphere. His officers monitored their descent, scanning for resistance. "There are no planetary shields," one officer reported. "No anti-air defenses detected. No signs of coordinated response." Vorik smirked. "Then this will be over before the next cycle." But then, something changed. One by one, the dropship's communications began to flicker. Reports came in of systems failing, targeting sensors going dark, and navigational readings becoming unreliable. "High Commander," a panicked voice burst through the command channel. "Something is interfering with our—" The transmission cut off. On screen, the neat formations of dropships faltered. Some veered off course, their landing trajectories disrupted. Others lost complete control, spinning wildly before crashing into the ocean or remote wilderness. Entire battalions meant to land together were now scattered across the planet in confusion. "What is happening?" Vorik snarled. "I want answers." The fleet's technicians worked furiously, trying to re-establish communication, but the interference was spreading. Earth's satellite network, previously dismissed as outdated, was suddenly pulsing with strange signals. Some were jamming Dominion frequencies. Others were sending false location readings. A few were even looping Tyra broadcasts back at them, making it seem as if their own forces were sending distress calls. And then the real attack began. On the surface, the first units to land found themselves walking into carefully laid traps. Roads that should have led to key cities were blocked with massive barricades, ones designed to funnel Xyra forces into narrow choke points. High-energy sniper rounds lanced through the air, targeting officers first. Automated defense turrets, disguised within seemingly harmless buildings, erupted with gunfire the moment Xyra soldiers stepped too close. Explosions rocked the landing zones. Underground mines, completely undetectable before activation, tore through entire squads in an instant. The Xyra, trained for direct confrontations, had no idea how to respond to an enemy that refused to meet them head-on. From his warship, Vorik watched in disbelief as his forces reported heavy losses. This wasn't just resistance. This was preparation. Earth had been ready for them, and they had just walked into the perfect trap. The first wave of Xyra troops moved cautiously through the ruined streets, their heavy armor clanking with every step. Their advanced visors scanned the area for threats, but their readings were unreliable, glitching, distorting, and feeding them false data. They had expected to march into frightened cities, subjugating terrified civilians. Instead, they'd found emptiness. No people, no vehicles, no signs of panic. It was as if the planet had been abandoned. Commander Krell, leading the 82nd Dominion Vanguard, gritted his teeth. "Something isn't right," he muttered through his comms. "Where are the civilians? Where is the resistance?" "Scanners indicate structures ahead," one of his lieutenants responded. "Tall buildings, reinforced walls. If they're hiding, that's where they'll be." Krell signaled his forces forward, advancing through the silent streets toward the towering city skyline in the distance. Their formation was perfect. Every angle covered, weapons charged and ready. If an ambush was coming, they would crush it with overwhelming firepower. Then, the first explosion tore through their ranks. A section of the road collapsed, swallowing an entire squad into the underground darkness. The moment the soldiers hit the ground below, automated turrets emerged from concealed alcoves, opening fire in a precise kill pattern. Their armor, built to withstand plasma bolts and railgun rounds, proved useless against the sheer volume of projectiles. Panic spread as the Xyra attempted to regroup, but before they could react, another trap was sprung. Windows in surrounding buildings shattered as drones, small, agile machines with near-silent engines, descended like a swarm of mechanical hornets. Each carried explosive payloads, targeting officers first. Krell barely had time to dive for cover before half his command squad was obliterated in a series of controlled detonations. His HUD flickered as their life signals went dark. "This is not a primitive world," he growled. The Xyra attempted to fight back, firing their plasma weapons wildly into the buildings, hoping to eliminate the unseen enemy. But their shots found nothing, just empty structures rigged with decoys and automated firing positions. Then came the snipers. From rooftops and concealed vantage points, human marksmen picked off high-value targets with chilling precision. Their weapons weren't traditional energy rifles, but kinetic weapons, old-fashioned bullets moving at impossible speeds. Xyra energy shields, designed to disperse plasma, were useless against them. A single round struck a Xyra captain through his helmet, bypassing his defenses entirely. Another round punched through a squad's medic, preventing any chance of recovery for the wounded. The Xyra forces, who had landed expecting an easy conquest, were now caught in a battle unlike anything they had ever faced. They weren't fighting a conventional army. They were fighting a ghost force, an enemy that attacked from the shadows and vanished before they could retaliate. And then the most chilling realization of all hit Krell. This was only the beginning. As the Xyra forces stumbled and reeled from the initial onslaught, their confidence began to erode. They had faced enemies before, but nothing like this. No other species had ever fought like this. They were used to brutal, head-on combat, where sheer strength and firepower determined the victor. But here, they faced an adversary that preferred to fight in the shadows, using the environment against them, attacking with precision and surgical strikes. Commander Krell, his armor battered from multiple encounters, clenched his fists. His forces were scattered, their ranks thinned by traps, snipers, and guerrilla tactics. He had expected to encounter resistance, but nothing had prepared him for the relentlessness of Earth's defense. They fought with ferocity, but it was a ferocity born of intelligence and resourcefulness, not just brute strength. "We need to regroup and call for reinforcements," Krell ordered, his voice tight. "Have the fleet initiate orbital scans. Find where the resistance is gathering." "Negative, sir," his tech officer responded. "Their communications are jammed. There are no clear patterns. It's like they're everywhere and nowhere all at once." The realization sank in. The humans were deliberately unpredictable, and that made them incredibly dangerous. There was no clear central command for the Xayra to target, no stronghold to destroy. Earth's forces seemed to be everywhere, but they never stayed in one place long enough to be struck down. The next phase of the battle was unlike any the Xayra had ever faced. As Krell and his remaining forces made their way through another urban wasteland, they encountered what appeared to be a decoy. A group of civilians hiding in an abandoned building, their faces terrified, their bodies trembling in fear. But as soon as they moved in for capture, the building exploded in a violent eruption, sending debris and smoke into the air. Krell's forces were thrown back, disoriented. The explosion was a trap, a distraction that led them straight into another ambush. The civilians were gone, but the trap had already been set. "Where are they coming from?" one of his soldiers shouted, barely avoiding a blast from an explosive trap. "They've turned the entire planet into a weapon," Krell muttered under his breath. "We can't predict their movements, can't anticipate their attacks." But it wasn't just the military that had set the traps. The civilians, who had been presumed to be powerless and insignificant, were active participants in the defense. It was as if every man, woman, and child had become part of a vast, invisible army. Earth was not just fighting with its military, it was fighting as a whole. In the dense urban ruins, small groups of civilians worked in the shadows, setting up the next wave of destruction. They weren't soldiers, but they fought with the same determination. They used what they had: tools, makeshift explosives, and guerrilla tactics, and were not afraid to face down invaders. Their knowledge of their own cities, their ability to move unseen, gave them an edge the Xayra never saw coming. Krell and his officers tried to coordinate a counterattack, but they quickly realized that Earth's fighters were not bound by traditional warfare rules. There were no uniforms, no predictable formations. The humans were everywhere, blending in, striking and disappearing before the Xayra could react. The most shocking part was the human will to resist. The Xayra Dominion, used to breaking enemy morale with overwhelming force, now found themselves faced with a species that simply refused to break, no matter the odds. Each defeat only seemed to fuel humanity's resolve. "We are not dealing with a primitive species," Krell said, as he watched his forces struggle to regroup. "We're dealing with something much worse. A species that fights with everything, with heart." For the first time, the Xayra began to wonder if this fight could be won, or if it was even worth continuing. The Xayra fleet had grown increasingly frantic. On the ground, their forces were being whittled away by guerrilla tactics, and every time they thought they had cornered the humans, the resistance slipped away like smoke. The sense of superiority that had initially fueled their invasion had been replaced by unease. Commander Krell's orders to call for reinforcements were met with only delays. A series of communications failures had crippled their ability to coordinate effectively. As their landing forces were decimated, the fleet's high command tried to push forward with orbital bombardments, hoping to break the humans' resolve by targeting key cities. If they could not win on the ground, They would scorch Earth from above. Vorik watched the situation unfold from the bridge of Imperator's Fist, his mind racing. "Prepare the heavy bombardment," he ordered coldly. "These humans must be taught their place." The Tyra warships lined up in perfect formation, their massive turrets charging with immense power. They aimed their weapons at the heart of Earth's major cities, ready to fire. The human resistance, they assumed, would be crushed under the weight of planetary annihilation. But as the first shots were fired, something happened that the Xyra hadn't expected. Earth fired back. From below, massive flashes of light erupted as Earth's hidden defense systems activated with devastating precision. At first, the Xyra believed they were being hit by stray meteors or cosmic debris. But as more projectiles rained down, they realized what was happening. Earth had secretly developed an advanced orbital defense network, hidden beneath the surface, beyond the reach of Xyra reconnaissance. Earth had planted a series of hypervelocity railguns capable of targeting large enemy vessels in space. In the blink of an eye, Xyra warships were struck. One after another, the ships that had fired on Earth were disabled in a flash. The first Xyra cruiser exploded in a ball of fire, the resulting shockwave damaging surrounding ships. The damage was immediate and severe. Xyra ships began veering off course, their systems unable to cope with the precise strikes. "Damage control teams to Sector 3. A voice echoed through Imperator's Fist, but it was too late. The damage to their ships was catastrophic. "What's happening?" Vorik demanded, staring at the chaos unfolding on his ship's holoscreen. "How are they firing on us?" The truth became clear as Earth's space fleet revealed itself, a fleet that the Xyra had completely overlooked. Smaller, sleeker, and far more agile than anything they had encountered, these ships moved with surgical precision, targeting key points in the Xyra fleet. Earth's ships were not designed for brute force. They were designed for agility, for hit-and-run tactics that the Xyra could never have predicted. "They'd been hiding ships this whole time," one of Vorik's commanders exclaimed. "How did we miss this?" Vorik was seething with rage, but there was no time for second-guessing. "Deploy the defense drones. Launch countermeasures," he ordered, trying to salvage some semblance of control over the situation. But it was too late. The Earth fleet, using advanced propulsion systems beyond Xyra understanding, darted between the wreckage of their own ships, hitting fast, disabling fast, and disappearing into the black void again. Xyra destroyers were torn apart in an instant, their shields failing to withstand the precision of Earth's strikes. "Launch every available craft," Vorik growled. "We can still win this." But as his orders echoed across the fleet, the situation worsened. A barrage of missiles rained down from Earth's orbital defense grid, aimed directly at the Xyra flagship. The weapons impacted with pinpoint accuracy, shattering the exterior hull of Imperator's Fist and causing a massive breach in the ship's core. The once proud Dominion flagship, symbol of their power and control, was now crippled. The Xyra fleet, now under siege from above and below, was falling apart. The humans had shown them something they hadn't even considered. Earth was not just defending itself. Earth was counterattacking. And they were winning. As the space battle raged above, Commander Krell struggled to maintain order on the ground. His forces were in disarray, retreating under the relentless pressure of Earth's guerrilla tactics. The Dominion soldiers had become disoriented, their coordination falling apart as the humans seemed to know their every move before they made it. But even worse was the psychological toll the humans were exacting. They were everywhere and nowhere at once. They were ghosts, their attacks swift and precise, their retreats seamless. Earth's resistance was like a living, breathing organism, an unstoppable force. And Krell realized that his enemies, though seemingly insignificant in numbers, were far more dangerous than anything he had faced. Just when he thought things couldn't get worse, he received the news that chilled him to his very core. The orbital defense network wasn't just a surprise. It was an understatement. Earth had more weapons hidden beneath the surface, weapons he could never have anticipated. The true nature of their defenses was only now becoming clear, and the implications were terrifying. A voice broke through his communications, shaky but firm. "Sir, the humans, they have a weapon." "What do you mean, a weapon?" Krell demanded. "They're ground forces. It's not just ambushes and traps. They're deploying biological agents, enhanced soldiers. We've encountered them in several sectors." The transmission cut out with a sharp crackle, and for a moment, Krell could only stare at the blank screen. Enhanced soldiers. It didn't make sense. Earth had never been known for genetic engineering or biological warfare on the scale of the Dominion. And yet, his officers had described the figures in the field, humans who moved with unnatural speed and strength, with glowing tattoos and armor that seemed to adapt to the environment, as if they were living weapons themselves. Then, the truth hit him. Humanity had unlocked a weapon beyond technology. They had mastered the art of combining biology and technology in a way that the Xyra had never even considered. This was not just about tactics or resources. It was about evolution. Humanity had harnessed their genetic potential and melded it with their technological prowess. Back in orbit, the Xyra fleet's position was becoming untenable. The remaining warships had been badly damaged, their forces retreating into a defensive formation. Earth's counterattacks had disabled vital systems, communications, engines, weapons, leaving the Xyra with no choice but to regroup. But even as they prepared to fall back, another surprise arrived. A transmission from Earth. Vorik, battered but unbroken, opened the incoming signal. The human face that appeared on the screen was one of calm determination. "This is Commander Sarah Williams of the United Earth Forces," she said. "We were hoping for an earlier conversation, but it seems you've had a rough start. Let's make this quick. You've underestimated us, and now it's time for you to leave." Vorik's eyes narrowed. "You think you've won? This invasion has only just begun. You will fall, just like all the others." Commander Williams smiled, a cold, knowing expression. "You've made a mistake, Vorik. You didn't take Earth's most dangerous weapon into account, the one that's always been right under your nose." Vorik paused. "What are you talking about?" The human smiled again, her eyes gleaming with an unsettling calm. "You didn't realize it, did you? The real weapon on Earth is not the technology, the tactics, or the soldiers. It's our will to survive. And you're about to learn just how far we're willing to go to defend it." Before he could respond, the transmission cut out, and the sound of an explosion reverberated through the ship. Vorik's chest tightened. The humans were no longer just resisting. They were striking back in ways no one had thought possible. Vorik sat motionless in his command chair, staring at the flickering remnants of the transmission. The calmness of Commander Williams' words echoed in his mind. "The real weapon on Earth is our will to survive." It was a simple statement, yet it had shaken him to his core. Humanity had not only fought back, they had redefined the very nature of battle. Down on the surface, the humans had begun a full-scale offensive. What had once been a scattered resistance now coalesced into a unified force. Earth's forces, emboldened by their newfound hope, launched coordinated strikes, pushing back Xyra troops with ferocity and precision. The traps and ambushes that had plagued the Xyra were now complemented by full-on assaults. Humanity's hidden weapon, their will to survive, had manifested not just in their tactics, but in their determination. And in that determination, they had learned how to use their planet itself as a weapon. Earth's terrain, its environment, and its sheer tenacity were being used against the Xyra in ways that the invaders could not have anticipated. The war had become a battle of attrition, and Earth was proving to be far more resilient than the Xyra had ever imagined. Krell's forces, who had once been the invincible tide of the Dominion, were now retreating in disarray. They could not hold their ground. The human resistance had developed new weapons, biological enhancements, and genetically modified soldiers who could adapt to any situation. These weren't just ordinary humans. They were enhanced versions of the species, warriors with the combined strength of advanced technology and human ingenuity. The Xyra had no way of understanding what they were facing. Their tactics, based on overwhelming force, no longer worked. The humans had outpaced them. The enhanced soldiers moved faster, hit harder, and had unparalleled endurance. The Xyra's energy weapons and plasma rifles, though deadly in a conventional fight, were useless against a new breed of soldier that fought with a brutal, primal intelligence. In the skies above, the Xyra fleet, once imposing and indomitable, had been reduced to a handful of shattered warships. Earth's space fleet, armed with stealth technology and high-powered missile systems, relentlessly struck at every remaining Xyra ship. The tactical advantage had shifted in the blink of an eye, and the Xyra were now on the defensive. The turning point came when a massive orbital strike launched from Earth's hidden weapons base, a high-energy pulse, designed to overload Xyra shields and weapons, hit Imperator's fist with devastating force. The flagship staggered, its systems failing one by one. With no functioning shields, the flagship became a sitting target. The remaining Xyra ships hesitated, uncertain of how to proceed. Their once infallible superiority was crumbling. "We're losing the fleet," one of Vorik's officers said, his voice quivering. "We can't sustain another strike. We have to retreat. Now." Vorik clenched his fists, fury burning in his chest. The humans had taken the fight to places he had never thought possible. Their bravery, their sheer resilience, had done what no one else could. They had forced the Xyra to retreat, to reconsider their entire strategy. "The humans cannot be allowed to continue," Vorik hissed, his voice low and filled with venom. "We will not abandon this world, not after everything we've sacrificed." But as the flagship's systems flickered and alarms blared, Vorik realized something that had eluded him from the beginning. This wasn't just a battle for control of Earth. It was a battle for humanity's right to exist, and they were fighting with everything they had. And in this fight, they were winning. The remnants of the Xyra fleet hung in orbit, battered and broken. A handful of ships remained, but their weapons were useless, their shields depleted, their crews demoralized. Commander Krell, once so certain of victory, now found himself at the mercy of a species he had once considered weak. Humanity had turned the tables, and the Xyra were paying the price for their arrogance. On the ground, the battle raged on, but now it was no longer just about survival. The humans had become offensive, taking the fight directly to the invaders. Every remaining Xyra position was under siege. The guerrilla tactics had evolved into full-scale assaults. Humanity was fighting not just for survival, but for their future. Krell's mind raced as his remaining forces attempted to regroup. But it was clear, Earth's resistance was unlike anything the Xyra had ever faced. This wasn't a species bound by the limits of traditional warfare. The humans were willing to sacrifice, adapt, and change in ways that the Xyra couldn't understand. They had fought off every Xyra tactic, every weapon, and turned it back on them. And now, Earth's forces were closing in on the final push. Vorik, aboard Imperator's fist, gripped the command console with white-knuckled fury. His flagship, once the pinnacle of Xyra power, was a mere shadow of its former self. The human fleet had disabled all but one of their remaining ships. Earth had fought back with a ruthless precision that no one had expected. "This ends now," Vorik growled, slamming his fist into the console. "Order the remaining fleet to attack. We cannot retreat. We will fight until the last ship." But even as he gave the order, he knew it was futile. The Xyra had no more tricks, no more reinforcements. Every ship in their fleet was damaged, and Earth's resolve was unbreakable. As the humans closed in for the final strike, Vorik felt a sinking feeling in his chest. The war was lost. On Earth's surface, Commander Williams stood in the midst of a devastated city, watching as the final Xyra positions fell. With every enemy that fell, another group of humans took their place, each soldier fighting as if their very existence depended on it. Because, for them, it did. There was no fear, no hesitation. Every single person, whether military or civilian, had become part of the resistance. They had embraced the fight, and it had become a part of who they were. "We did it," Williams whispered to herself, standing tall in the face of victory. But her voice was steady, without celebration. There would be no time for rest. There were still some Xira left to deal with, and Earth would not stop until every last one was pushed off their planet. The final push came swiftly. With Earth's space fleet in full control of orbit, the remaining Kyra ships had no escape. They were boxed in, their weapons useless, and their options exhausted. Commander Krell ordered the last of his ships to attempt a retreat, an attempt to escape the planet's atmosphere, but it was too late. A final wave of human fighters descended upon the remaining Kyra fleet, using advanced stealth technology to outmaneuver them in the last moments. The remaining warships were hit by precision-guided missiles, overwhelming their defenses with explosive force. The Kyra, once so proud, now faced complete annihilation. As the last Kyra ship was disabled, the humans looked to the skies, where Earth's fleet began its final descent. The battle was over. The Kyra had been pushed back, their forces decimated. Earth, once thought to be defenseless, had proven the invaders wrong in every possible way. Humanity's will to survive had been their greatest weapon, and in the end, it had won. With the war's conclusion, Earth stood victorious, its people battered but unbroken. They had driven off a force greater than any they had ever faced, and in doing so, they had shown the galaxy that Earth, humanity, was a force to be reckoned with. The message was clear. No one could underestimate the power of a species willing to fight for its future. Humanity had risen, and the universe would remember their name.